Welcome to the Crying Minds podcast. You're here with me now, your host Ray, with my man's K Rose, Keishon, the man, the one, the only. And you know what I'm saying? We're here with another episode. So today, I mean, it ain't really that we got too much to talk about, but I guess today our focus is more so on the idea of boundaries. You know what I'm saying? Just building those, and how kind of like even in our own lives, we're kind of working towards just building more boundaries and starting to just really get a sense of our own like foundation from what our piece is inside, and then learning how to even express that externally, and then how to create the space that we need to preserve that. So yeah, I mean, if you wanna go ahead, my boy. If you wanna speak on it, how you feel, because I mean, man, it's kind of crazy. Like when we're dealing with a lot of people in the world, there's people out there that know their boundaries and know there's certain lines that they won't cross and that they won't let cross with them, but they'll openly cross with other people because they know that those boundaries aren't as strong or aren't as clear. You know what I'm saying? And that's where you start getting to this idea where people start using each other and we start taking advantage of each other. But really, it gets kind of hard even with the idea of like when you're starting to go through more and more of life, you're going through a lot of things mentally of when you start really instilling these boundaries, because a lot of people they don't know how far they've crossed with you until a lot of times they went too far. You know what I mean? And that's nothing to say about impact compared to intention, but at the same time, it's kind of like a weird thing whenever you're also on the other end of it, respecting someone's boundaries and just taking it as is whenever they said they've had enough. You know what I mean? So, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if you have anything you want to speak on that or if you disagree in any way, my boy.
You know, I think this is a very interesting conversation because recently I've been like understanding that more about myself now, but I would totally agree with you here. Um, I feel like that's for one, I see that happen sometimes. It happened with me. Uh, there were some people I knew like who wouldn't, they had boundaries and I would respect that, like I kept it there and then, we would move forward. Um, there were people who knew like I was such like an open and like nice person that sometimes like I would like move my boundaries for their comfort. Or like, just because sometimes they would like use that to take advantage of me. Um, like I would do that just because like, at the end, like, I feel like I'm a pretty giving person and like sometimes I give with my own boundaries. And that's for me, it wasn't fair because sometimes like I would be hurt in the end or like it would affect me in a way that like I couldn't be able to recover from. Um, and I feel like when you do things like that, it ultimately comes back to hurt you if you don't respect your own boundaries. Uh, I feel like we just should have a more reasonable conversation about how we can maybe better set boundaries for ourselves and then talk about how it affects other people whenever like you purposely cross their boundaries because you feel like you can, right?
No, I mean that's kind of like a weird thing that we always deal with, because like I mean, coming from the youth, because like a lot of times when it comes to just boundaries, you learn that from your environment, from your nurturing. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times, like at least in my situation, you might have folks who don't really have like the strongest sense of all of their boundaries. They have boundaries, and there are clear boundaries. There was many boundaries I was clear of as a kid, and there was many things that I was very unclear of that even other family might push in their own way because nobody's making that clear distinction. And if anything, it's just more so like there's certain things that you just gotta put up with. And you don't gotta put up with nothing that you don't want to put up with. I mean, like it's one thing when you're growing up in someone else's home and they're taking care of you. There's only so much control you have in your situation. But the
Yeah.
moment you turn 18, 16, 21, however you see it or however your situation is, there's a point where at some point when you become more and more of an adult, because a lot of the differences between us being adults and us being children is the idea of accountability. You know what I'm saying? Children try to make them accountable in some way, shape, or form, but there's only so much they're really going to be accountable for at the end of the
Mhm.
day. And there's only so much them being accountable for actually matters. You know what I mean? Like they could be accountable for doing wrong here or there behind your back, right? They could be or they could not be, and you can't really control that. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, if they do something so far that reflects on you, it looks more bad on you as a parent than it'll look on the child a lot of the time. You know what I mean? And but then once we start crossing into adulthood, because you might hear people blaming their folks or blaming all these people for not doing this or doing that for them. But like, there's still a point in time of which where you have to gain your own sense of self and some motivation to actually want to grow in your own light in your own way. And the only way you're going to do that is that you're able to critically look at what you've been doing, what you're going to do, and being willing to say, this was wrong or right, or this was the best decision I could make at the time that I was making it, considering the factors. And then sometimes you got to also be willing to know that there's times you should listen more when you're choosing not to. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean listen to everybody, because advice is subjective. It doesn't work for just because this advice worked for this person doesn't mean it's going to work for them. You know what I mean? You can't just implant situations all the time and expect that this solution for this specific situation is going to work for the same other specific situation that seems very similar. Sometimes the solutions could be similar, but it's still just different enough that it isn't the same. You know what I mean? And time changes for everybody. Time changes for everybody.
Yeah.
So
and everything changes with time.
So like, I mean, where do you really start to say that we have real open conversations about having these boundaries with people and growing these boundaries and learning these boundaries? Because there's so much reprogramming that you're already going to have to do as an adult. You know what I mean? Considering from your past childhood traumas, from your anger responses, whatever. Because for me personally, bro, I go 0 to 100. I don't really have no in between. And that shows in so many different ways of my life. It shows in like how I interact with anger, how I interact with people, how I even talk sometimes. I'm not gonna a lot of times if I'm not trying to give you the energy, it's because I'm gonna give you too much energy if I do put the energy in. You know what I mean? I'm gonna put too much into it, or I'm gonna put too much thought into it. Or when it makes me angry, I'm gonna be angry. You know what I mean? And there's only so much anger I can show because, like, in my position, like, I'm a decent tall black male. I'm like 6'2", 6'3". So a lot of times for me, I'm constantly always in a position where I feel like I'm around a lot of people that are trying to make me the aggressor in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean?
And that's also based upon your just real experience too. Because a lot of the time you may have felt that because a lot of people portrayed that to you, even though you know yourself and your intentions. People like sometimes try to like make you out to be that way, or maybe it hasn't happened to you, but it's happened to people close to you or people you know of, and then like that also like puts some precaution in your life that like you have to do certain things so people won't see you this way. But unfortunately, they're going to see us this way regardless. We have no control over those things. So
hey man, I mean, short man syndrome's a thing. You know what I mean? I'm taller than a lot of people. A lot of people have to look up to me physically, not even like on a metaphorical level. There might be some kids out there that look up to me, but I don't really know too many of those. I try to be some type of example, but I can't say that I'm the best example to everybody that I'm around. I can't promise that. I take that with what it is, bro. Like, I'm not really, even when it comes to my personality, I'm trying to be more of like a fun uncle. I'm not really trying to be like the most respectable man that's trying to lead a whole whatever, like, or even if that is somebody's whole thing, like, that's not me. I want to kind of be a bit more comedic. I want to enjoy people's company, and I want to kind of give them that comfort to be around me too, and enjoy themselves. Because, like, at the end of the day, man, like, people be intimidated, bro. I could be around somebody and I have no problems with them. You know what I mean? But they got some weird problem with me. I'm weird. I'm too tall. I'm too big. I'm doing too much, bro. Why can't I just be there, bro? You know what I'm saying? I didn't bother you. I wasn't in your world. I wasn't in your day. I didn't care what the hell you was doing. You know what I mean? But somehow you care about what I'm doing, how I'm looking, and how I go about my life. Even though, again, people could be, bro, I could hear advice from people that don't do it in their own world, bro. So, like, you can hear from a bunch of people tell you, go to the gym and exercise, and they don't go to the gym or exercise themselves in any type of consistent manner. But they tell you to do it because they know that you would look better with it, right? Hey, bro, why was that your first thing that came to your mind? You know what I mean? I understand it coming from like friends because they're generally just saying like that would be a good thing to do, and that should be something you're doing in your adulthood because our body is literally just deteriorating from this point. It's not getting any better. You know, a lot of your physical peaks are going to be up to the age of like 21 or something like that. So at this point, if you're above that, there's really no like you can still reach like a really nice physique or a lot of muscles, but it won't be nearly as much as if you had done it when you were younger. You know what I mean? Or it won't be at the same caliber. I mean, more so. So like, you know, it's kind of weird when you kind of get around people that have their own weird sense of like envy, entitlement, or jealousy. You know what I mean? Or they have to, you know, they're in some weird mindset where they have to kind of be a big dog and they have to feel respected in their own space. Even when you do respect them, it's not like you don't. You know what I mean? But in their minds, they might not feel that that's received. And a lot of times I'm confused how else you could receive respect from somebody. You know what I mean? Other than like either you could look at the actions or you could look at how they talk to you, bro. And at times I don't feel like I'm the most disrespectful person, but I do feel like I have a condescending tone. I feel like when I talk to some people, they might feel like that I'm making them sound dumb or something, but I'm literally just talking it out the same way I would have talked it out to myself. I mean, there's times I feel like I'm really stupid. I've never felt like I was smart. I still don't feel like I'm smart. I feel like there's so much we have to learn.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of fun. Before I say, bro, you're very intelligent. Just know that you're probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever talked to in my life. And I know a lot of people, I do, and you're one of the like, you're up there, bro. A lot of people out here, you know, struggle to grasp some of the concepts that you like understood a long time ago. You know, and that's just because you're experiencing life and like who you are. So, but it's also good that you can recognize, you know, you're not the most intelligent person out there. And sometimes you feel like you're the dumbest in the room. I be feeling that shit all the time, especially at work. And like, you know, even in the school setting, like, you know, these people have been working and doing these things for years. And yet here I am new to the situation and like low key sometimes the same expectation is held. But it's just like, dang, like now I have to adapt and, you know, get to the times. But at the same time, like I can't tell myself that like I'm not prepared or I'm unintelligent or like, you know, this isn't something that I'm capable of doing because look at where we are in life now. Like we've literally adapted to so many things. We've already learned so much. We have the capability to learn so much more. You know, like we really can do anything we put our minds to, truly, as long as like we put our minds to it and keep going. So I'm just saying this to you. Don't say that anymore. But I mean,
No,
it's really
I appreciate that, man, but I try to stay humble in many ways. So, you know, even again, I appreciate the praise in its own way because again, like I'm not thinking like that, you know what I mean? I kind of just want to be the person always like thirsty for more water, thirsty for more truth. I remember there was like a saying from uh, I remember a good friend of mine. His name's Chris Flowers, and he gave a good analogy of the situation. Can't remember it now, but it was something about like bringing like a horse to water, and you can't force them to drink. And if anything, you want to be the person thirsty for more knowledge and for more wealth of what's there to offer for you, because the resources are gonna always be there. You know, there's gonna be fish, and someone could teach you how to fish. But if you have no interest to even learn or even go to the idea of that, then you know you're kind of ending up lost in a way, or else you're gonna end up stagnant at some point because there's only so much you can learn from one avenue. You know what I mean? You gotta look at different views, different perspectives, and that's kind of what I enjoy about what we're doing here, is because I just want to keep pushing out as many perspectives as possible. Like I appreciate your perspective, man. You know what I mean? You're another black man in the mix just as much as I am, you know, but you're doing different things in your own way. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's valuable, especially with like the way that life goes on. Like there's not like a lot of like, I don't think there's too much that you could listen to where people are giving you perspectives on how they're just kind of they're going through it or they're dealing with it. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing for us to sit here and have this conversation. It's another thing if we're able to get together with a group of other Black people and create a Black space to where we feel comfortable compared to being out in a normal space where it might be a bit more unattractive, unappealing to actually be yourselves because we're getting watched and we're getting viewed differently. You know what
Yep.
I mean? That doesn't mean that we have to start impersonating what Black means because your identity of Black is just you. That's your skin tone. You know what I mean? We're all part of like some diaspora. Whether who feels like we're equal or we're not equal, we're all colored people. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Somewhere in the spectrum, like you know what I mean, like all we really have is kind of each other. And if you're not really working towards that, then you're selfish again. And again, you can live life that way. A lot of people self-preserving, that's going to be your natural instinct, but you get further as a group, you get further as a society, but we don't need to share the exact same opinions, ideologies to achieve the same goal. We don't. We just gotta share some similar interest to that goal. You know what I mean?
Man, this is so crazy that you're talking about this because that made me first think about like kind of like the state of where we are as like a world and a nation right now. It's just like, and this is a little very much off topic, so I know we're supposed to be talking about boundaries, but I'm gonna just hop off topic
That's
here.
cool too. You can hop over the country boundary, bro. Hop over internationally if you want to, man. I ain't stopping it.
Bro.
I kind of like foreign. If it ain't foreign, it's boring, bro. So sometimes you gotta go into new territory, man. So nah, go ahead. Speak from your heart, fool.
Yeah, man. I was just thinking about like how even like in this nation, there's a lot of hate and there's like a lot of like, somebody who's like who grew up in a religious household and understands religion to some capacity. Um, I've seen how like things like that, things like religion, things like certain ideologies corrupt like a lot of people's minds and like kind of like it just allows them to look at the bigger picture that we're all just here, really wanting to vibe, just be okay and just live a good life. That's all what we want. Some people want a little bit more than that. They want everybody to think the same and act the same as them. But I feel like a lot of them do it for one out of fear because they're scared of things that they aren't used to, and two, they do it out of the idea of self-preservation. They don't want who they are to die out in the world of other people's ideologies either. You know, there's a lot that can go into it, but truly, it just made me think like how I feel like it would be such an important time right now at this moment, especially the times we're living in now, to like really foster that space of everybody coming across from different branches of the world, really just talk about their experiences and like what they view life as and like how we view life as, because I feel like the majority of us in a sense feel the same way, and like another portion of us are maybe brainwashed by like what the media feeds them and like telling them the things they should care about, opposed to like them looking out in front of them, realizing like there's so much more to life than just what we're told to be upset about and what we're told to not be upset about. You know what I'm saying? It's just,
Hmm.
but I feel like I don't know, maybe that's just not everybody wants to think that way, and that's okay. It's good to me personally, like that we all think differently, and I think it's important to all that we all think differently. But if we can't come together for some common thing, and then that just like nothing can work. Nothing can ever work.
No, for sure, man. I mean, a lot of times we're kind of always put into these different sort of categories and spaces and boxes and echo chambers where you're just repeating the same thing to those onto you, to those that will come after you, and those. But at the same time, not everybody. I don't feel like everybody really believes in half the stuff that we be saying to each other. A lot of times, I feel like it's more virtue signaling. You just want to align yourself with the tribe and align yourself with the group because it makes us more comfortable with each other. It makes us feel like that we're equally in this idea of what a good person is, but being good or bad is subjective. And if you take that light, that headlight, if you put someone on the stage, take one of those headlamps at the top and shine them at any direction, you can see all of their good and bad sides. You can see all that. You know what I mean? It just depends on how you angle it. But at the same time, that's still a person. These are still things that people do. And at some point, there has to be some type of empathy or compassion and some type of action to want more. And there are people that want that. But then there's also the business side of it. You earn more money when there's more problems to fix. And the longer it takes to fix the problem, the more costly it is. Therefore, it's more opportunity to earn money.
Mm-hmm. So you just described capitalism and consumerism. So we give people all these products, and then now we have to support ourselves with these million of products we have now.
I mean, I ain't gonna say it was all capitalism, but that is a weird part about it. Is that self-preservation and the fact that people working in and what we believe is the invisible hand and how much of that is just orchestrated. It comes into different plays, bro. I mean, there's so much here now. We could be dealing with inflationary spending in many different ways, but there was at one point with the whole pandemic that corporations, companies were just gouging prices. They're probably still gouging prices right now, and you're just raising them just because inevitably people are still going to have to pay. You know what I mean? We could go into the whole idea with the whole, I think a bunch of Walmarts closed down Portland, Oregon at one point, and people were robbing from them so much. But at the same time, everything's up in price. Even to buy your regular breakfast food items doesn't cost the same anymore. You know what I mean? You take $10 to the grocery store, it doesn't mean much. It means even less now than it even did before. You can be spending, 50, $80 for really maybe 10 items at a grocery store. You know what I'm saying? Maybe 10. And that depends on what you're really buying. If it's small things and you already have all the main ingredients you need, then that might not be too bad. But when you have to start buying a lot more pivotal things that you have to buy in the bulk, you can't just buy a small amount of it. It becomes more pricey. It becomes a lot more. And what does that really mean? That now that you're already given a certain wage an hour, and now that you have to work a certain number of hours within a set of a work week period schedule, with every 2 weeks, and out of that, your paycheck is only going to cover, possibly, if it doesn't cover all your bills, it might cover a certain percentage of it, and then you have to take your next check out of the month, 2 or 3, depending if you're paid weekly or not. Then you have to put that in there, and then at the end of the day, how much are you left to really do anything else other than you have to save? You have to build your money, or you have to start repurposing how you're going about it, whether it be you get another job, you start investing your money into brokerage accounts, and you start trying to build a portfolio and try to see the long-term gains, because you can always see long-term gains from stock, but the only thing about that is it's long-term. If it's short-term in any means, it's just a hustle. It's just a hustle, because hustles produce fast money fast. A lot of times, if it's a long-term hustle, it's a play that you're not gonna think about, and you're not thinking about it producing kind of farming for a harvest type of thing. It's something that you're gonna work on, but it's not gonna take your dedicated focus, because it might not be long. You know what I mean? But somebody that actually sees value, they're gonna put their heart into it because they see the value is forever going. It's not about just what the long term is, but what you're trying to build in that long term, not what you're trying to produce and what you're trying to gain out of it. What you're trying to build, what's that foundation going to look like when you actually can build something and build a castle or build a business or build a brick and mortar of any case, you know what I'm saying, that supports your vision. Because a lot of times people aren't going to see your vision. You have to bring it to their doorstep. And a lot of people are going to appreciate what you brought once you've produced it. They're not going to appreciate, they're not going to really want to hop on until they know that it's going to work out. or it's already worked out and it's just working out more and more for you. You know?
It's a crazy point. It's kind of crazy that that's the way things are typically set up now. Like you pretty much have to bring the vision with proof of success in order to like get anywhere. Um, but like I mean that's just a game. It's really like I don't know. I feel like a lot of this is just like it's like Loki is a game. You know, like I think about the board game Monopoly, how you literally just go around, you know, buying things. Like if people land on your square, then you have to pay for it, blah blah blah. And you know, in real life, you know, there's people groups, you know, like with proof that people have shown, you know, that own a lot of these companies and they own like a lot of really the things happening in the world as a whole. Like are these people like what are they like doing, you know, like clearly like they don't have anything like to worry about, but like you know like how do they see the world, you know, and like is it just something like oh like you know do they still think the same way we do, like do they care about the same things we care about, because to them like they basically can have any and everything they want. They're just living and doing things. I feel like you know at this point they're just manipulating what's happening in the world, and like you know just like they can like cause like you know economies to fail, countries to be overthrown, and like radical ideologies to be thrown out by like the uses of media, because they can like lobby for certain things or like you know put money in the pockets of people who are telling us these things you know that we hear on the daily.
No, I feel that, man. I mean, there's a lot of market manipulation. There's a lot of political manipulation all around, bro. I mean, like whether it's openly spoken or whether it's openly apparent or not, like somebody's making it to where they're getting their way. You know what I mean? Like whether it be through monetary means, whether it be through the change in power, an exchange of power. Because really, like, man, that's the world we live in. I mean, we can idealize money in any way that we want to, but if you have enough and you have enough friends on top of the money, or if you know how to make friends with the money, you can do a lot. You can do a lot more than an average Joe can that has to take the risk as is already experiencing life, with all the risks that we have to undergo, even though we don't understand all of them. You're hoping on that, that lottery ticket, that one opportunity that you have to do something better for yourself. Because I don't feel like everybody doesn't get that opportunity. I feel like there's times where you do have opportunity to get to a different situation or a different opportunity, but you have to. A lot of times, it's here and then it's gone. It's here and it's gone. Once you miss it, you missed it. Now, either you're hoping that you get a second chance, or you gotta navigate through your situations differently, because all you can do is just learn to navigate. That's it. You can't really just avoid everything in life because you can't determine, you can't stop the inevitable. If you're meant to lose a leg, you can't. You can only do so much to avoid losing the leg, but again, just because you lost it doesn't make you less of a person. Just because someone else might have lost theirs doesn't mean that you can't lose yours,
Yeah.
but each of us have to live life differently. You know what I mean? Like, we can sit here and we can talk on, all the manipulation that goes on in the world, but then like we sit in a whole different echo chamber, because then like how many people are out there helping out homeless people? I mean, how many people out there that might be complaining about how everything should be better and be different, but they're not volunteering. They're not going to go help nobody, but they're
Mm-hmm.
willing to be a social advocate. They're willing to get on social media and repost something that they feel should be different. But when it comes to just going out and taking an hour or two out of your weekend to go help somebody else that's less fortunate than you, you're not going to do it. You're not. You know what I mean? Even though that might help them. You know what I mean? When you invest something, you can invest money. We can always talk about the investment of money, but where's the investment in time? And that's if you have the time. I'm not gonna say everybody got it, but there's times we know that we're all not doing something. You're not
Mhm.
doing nothing. You know that there's things that you will make time for, and there's things you just won't.
Yeah, and I feel like that's based upon what you choose to prioritize in life, and like, you know, that's honestly what it boils down to. Like, you can prioritize looking good, or you can prioritize being good, um, and you can prioritize, one action over the other. It's up to you. It's up to you. But yeah, man. I mean, in this stage in life, I feel like we really need to take the time to like help our neighbor and like be that reasonable person that could help the person who's failing next to us. But instead, like, I feel like a lot of us just want to. Let me not say a lot of us. Some people, I've sometimes even been that person myself. I'll admit I've been that person, to not really like stand on what I'm saying. Like, I'll like post something on social media, but like I'm not going outside to really say anything, or go outside to really make any difference myself. Now, I feel like sometimes the situation was I didn't have the capability to do that at the time, because life is just like, you have to work on what you have to first to get to where like you're in a position to do what you want to do. But like sometimes it's hard to like dual spear them at the same time. Um, and maybe people advocate for it that way because it's just like I can't help in this position right now, but I do support like people who want to help. Like, I think that's an important aspect of it. But there are people who like have the capabilities to help, and I've been also in a position where I've had capabilities to help, but I maybe won't just because selfish reasons, typically. Selfish reasons. But like I don't know, some people also maybe do it for the intention of just looking good, or maybe holding up this you know status bar for themselves to
Virtue
maybe like,
signaling. Yep.
yeah, like you were saying. And truly, I don't know. That's why like it's hard for me to go on social media nowadays, anyways, because I feel like there's too much of that going on, and like people are saying all these things, people are fighting for all these things, and complaining about these certain things. But like, look at where we are as a community. What are we really doing in life? Are people really being helped? Are we really even growing? Our population is growing, and like, yeah, the people, the wealth we're attaining is increasing, but how are we doing as a community of Black people? Like, the money is there, but are we like actually building relationships? Are we actually bringing back families? Like, you know, every time I look around the corner, there's just, I mean, there are people getting married. Let me not disregard that. Black marriage is happening, and Black people are getting married and having kids, and doing great things. But there also is an increase of like just people becoming like single parents. And honestly, from my own opinion, bro, I've seen it. It's just still the same thing it's been for years. Single Black mom with the dad choosing to not be there, just because he's just a young, unguided male. I'll just say that, with no role model and no real guidance. And now it's just kids with no guidance creating families, not even creating families, just adding to the population at this point. And then you have these misguided children who have been hurt and really have to learn how to survive on their own, essentially do the same thing to another generation of kids. And it's just like, we're not doing anything right now to stop this, I feel like. And it's just going to keep happening and keep happening. And then all of a sudden, when these bad things keep happening to our people, we're just going to point the finger at ourselves with no real plan to take action and say that you need to do better and you need to like get your stuff together because that's you. But at the same time, we're not being realistic with ourselves, because the people who know better aren't coming down to really help the people who don't know better. And it's just, when they do something wrong, it's, oh, you should have known better, right? Or this is what you should have been doing, blah blah blah. But like, they don't really see how these people are living. They don't understand what's going on in their mind. And I feel like naturally, like, I mean, we are very different people, based just upon like our brain, just based upon the way our brain is built, right? even with that, I feel like half the crazy things that people would do aren't really even crazy. It's just due to the lack of emotional intelligence, and sometimes that just spirals out so far that people get to the points where they feel like they're too far gone and they just don't care anymore, and they drop a lot of like their pride, ego, and just don't give a fuck, and then they do things that would be considered crazy, but like again, there are some people who are like mental, like they can't help themselves, and that's one thing. But there are a lot of people who can, but they need help from other people. We need help from the people who are in a position to help, but yet nobody's like extending that. Or I mean, not saying nobody, but a lot of people are just overlooking the issue, and we just want to get quick to pointing the finger. Like, how do we try? How do you think we will overcome this? Like, what is the best way to do this?
It's hard for me to give answers and solutions. We're just here to give think pieces. But like, if I were to give it any opinion that I could, towards working to being better, like, it's one thing because, like you said, with emotional intelligence, like, we lack a lot of emotional maturity. You know what I mean? Just like a lot of people in the population. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say it's everybody. A lot of people are very mature and understand their emotions and process them in healthy ways. A lot of people don't. A lot of people, we have a lot of toxic traits and there's a lot of still reprogramming that we gotta do. And some people are carrying that same thing into their 50s and 60s, you know what I mean, or 70s, you know what I mean. At some point, there's times where I'm not gonna say everybody's a lost cause, but there's points where you can only help somebody so much that's helping themselves. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? If they're not, then there's only so many conversations you could have about growing and taking accountability or being emotionally mature and being empathetic and understanding someone else's situation or something like that. And that's where it just kind of comes in like back and forth because again, like there is that aspect that there are people that are with no guidance. They're given no guidance at all. Like even when we can speak about just black boys and black men in general, there's a lot of people that lack guidance in their life and lack mentors. But then on the other side of that, there are people that did have guidance and mentors and still made the decisions that they had. So then it's
yeah,
like, and then it's like, okay, so where do we kind of start to cross a line where it's like some people just aren't really going to take accountability for themselves, though they should. You know what I'm saying? We should be holding each other more accountable, not to whatever this virtue, whatever we feel like a good person is, but to being the person that they say that they are. You know what I'm saying? Being more intentional in the person that you're trying to be. You know what I mean? If you're trying to be whatever this idea of a good person is, a Christian, or if you want to be a humble man, I don't know what else, how else you can describe somebody. If you want to be a community leader, you got to uphold certain things. You got to hold yourself accountable, especially if you're falling back in certain ways and you know that you should be doing better. I mean, there's nothing that's going to stop us other than the fact that we keep working against ourselves. Because like you're saying, like, I do agree to some aspect that there is more black marriages happening, but there's also just generally among at least our age group, that there are more people that are willing to adopt having a kid out of wedlock than they are willing to actually get married and then settling down and having a family. Because
yeah,
you've seen what the numbers has been through the years. Even when I was young, like the percentage of marriages that end up in a divorce, 50%. 50%. I mean, it's literally it's a 1-to-1 chance that either it's gonna work or it's not gonna work. And then I can't remember if the statistics still the same, but I remember there was a point where the numbers were thrown around. The more times you get married, the more likely you were to stay in divorce, the less likely you were to stay in a really good marriage for a long time. You know what I mean? So like working from all of that and then like kind of taking with the mentality that people might be taking because to some point, some degree, you know men back in the day didn't have to work too hard for women worked hard to be married and to be in like a role where you're a matriarch or something. But I feel like a lot of times, in a lot of ways, you see how that's been so tripped out. Somebody's taking advantage. A lot of times, males took advantage. A lot of times, males are still taking advantage. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But it didn't mean that there weren't women taking advantage. And it didn't mean that, again, that there could have been a more equitable situation between y'all, no matter what the situation was. But at the same time, that we weren't worried about that. You know, we didn't have technology. You didn't have all these information systems or the Internet of Things to really connect you with everything else. So now, we can sit in groups. We can sit in weird forums where we can kind of debate about, who's this and who's that, or if we want to sit on Twitter, that whole collection of thoughts of a social network. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just everybody thinking, and half the time, really care about each other's thoughts, or are we really just looking for the funnier ones? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? We're looking for something that you more so can connect to, and then after that, you're right off to that. If you're even on in the first place, you know, a lot of times it's just like we're sitting in these think tanks, these echo chambers, and a lot of these other things, but it's like, you can sit around your friends and we can all talk about how back then times were harder. We can all talk about how times are harder. Or we can talk about how times are different. We can talk about how, we feel like this generation's softer than the last one. I mean, to some degree, that is true. I'm not gonna act like there aren't a lot more sensitive people there, but at the same time, if we think back, there are a lot of people that weren't sensitive at all and pushed down their whole emotions and feelings away, pushed it off the line, off the topic, and literally sat in whatever situation or position just off of the principle that they feel like that's what they were supposed to do. You
Exactly.
felt like that was your responsibility, that was the mantle you took up.
Yeah.
I met a woman one time, faithful, very faithful to her husband, lives her vows devoutly, though her husband cheats on her in her face in front of other people. And but
What?
I've even spoke to her about this. She was just like, but I made a promise. I made a promise since we gave vows that I am going to stay with this man and that I will be faithful and I'm going to live through my promise. But
But
how long can you keep going with such a man that's full of so much infidelity? I mean, not full of so much infidelity, but so like complacent and with no remorse for the idea of what he's doing, that he's not trying to stay with a faithful woman that again might be making her life easier. Because I feel like the point of relationships is that you're wanting to make somebody's life easier. You're trying to cohabitate with somebody. You're trying to build a foundation with them for a family. You're not trying to just hop on somebody's wave whenever you feel like they have it together because they can get it together faster than you can.
you know,
I mean that's beneficial. That's cool. If that's your agreement, if that's how it works out, then you should go for it. But sometimes I feel like that makes it more complicated because there's so much stipulation, so much where you can come into entitlement. There's so much that comes into like how you might need more than that, but that's something you do need for sure. So you're trying to make sure you cover that before you go into all your other wants and needs and whatever else is reasonable or not. Whether it be dudes asking too much from their woman or when it comes to sex, whether it be if you're gay and you know what I'm saying, you're asking too much of your partner. It doesn't matter what the case is. It doesn't matter your orientation, your sex, your gender, or whatever you identify with. At the end of the day, whoever you're with, whether even if you're in a polyamorous, I mean, like, is it polyamorous with a bunch of people? I
I
think
don't.
so, bro. I
Yeah, I
think
think
so.
that
It's
sounds
it's it's one of them, bro. It's one of them. But like, I don't know it all. I'm ignorant to a lot of things, and I forget as time goes on because my focus isn't to be politically correct all the time. It just isn't. It's more so to be as genuine as I can be and to try to live in these experiences, going in trying to be grateful for what I have and what I'm trying to work towards. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, but if I get with somebody, if I'm in a relationship with somebody, that's what I want. I want to make your life easier. I'm considering you. I feel comfortable around you, and I want you to make sure that you're always comfortable around me. Because if we're not growing, if we're always in disagreement, if we're not in some type of harmony, I'm always here to try to talk to you about something. If you feel like there's something I'm doing wrong, literally have a real conversation with me, and I'm willing to sit down with you and we can talk through it. though it might be hard for me sometimes to kind of sit through it, I still push through, and I will be quiet, and I will give you the space for you to speak, and I will just listen to you. And then from there, we got to start brainstorming what's more realistic and what's real for us to stay together. You
Yeah,
know, if or else we're not on the same page, and we gotta go and turn the chapter.
that's so real, bro. That's man, it was literally like that's so great, like that you say that because just the idea of like I don't know, being genuine enough to like really say like I want this relationship enough, whether it's like a friendship, a romantic relationship, or like just a family relationship. I value that relationship so much that I'm willing to like talk things out and work things out versus just saying like, oh, this is it. Like, I understand sometimes it comes down to that point, but a lot of people don't like allow that space because it's just not something they're willing to put up with themselves. However, this brings us back to the point of boundaries. This brings us back to the point of boundaries.
Where we started from, you already know we gotta circle up. We gotta circle up. Whoa.
Man, that's crazy because I think it's good to be around people who are like-minded to the point to where you can at least understand each other, find some middle ground to understand each other, and then go about it that way. You know what I'm saying? But some people, it's hard for them to find that middle ground, and it's hard for them to understand each other, and they just choose not to, versus taking the time and having the patience to understand it. And I feel like maybe that's more so just on the value of what like it really boils down to like what that person values. Is it do they value like maintaining an intimate relationship with somebody, or do they value just pure connection and like having it whenever it's there? you know like it's crazy like to see like people, I don't know, do you think people value the feelings more or the relationship more?
I feel when it comes to that, man, at least in my own experiences, I can't speak for everybody, that a lot of times I feel that people might value their feelings more than the relationship. Or if we really consider it like I could frame it more so like this. I feel like a lot of people, at least when you're going into a relationship, you're going in with a fantasy, some idea of what you think this person is and the potential that they have and what that y'all could be. And that might be beautiful, it might be amazing, and it might actually work out for you. But then at the same time, we have to still take some reality to it about, like you're saying, what their goals, motivations, what their values and principles are. Because, there's a lot of cases, man. Like for me personally, I'm agnostic. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times that can be seen coincide with atheism or something like that. I'm not the biggest believer that the being above, that I can truly just say that that is personally to me devoutly my God, my Savior. I don't feel that. But I respect anybody else's position if you are a Christian, because I do not deny the concept of it, but I like to keep my mind open to the ever changing idea that we don't know everything and that there's so much more to understand, that we've just yet to come across the information necessary to understand more. Not to say I believe more in Scientology or any of the other things. I'm just willing to say that there's a possibility to open your mind to much more. And I'm not putting anybody order to say anything different, but like for me personally, me not being that way or not believing in that way is just more so like how I've grown up, how I've seen some people who have given the testament that they are Christian and that they live a certain way, and then I know their whole other lifestyle to know that they don't do any of that, and that at the other end of it, that they're really just pleasing a lot of the people around them that they call their friends or their community. So it's just kind of weird to me to kind of like follow something or say you have faith in something and you're not really following the same footsteps. In my own world, I'd rather not follow something I know I'm not truly devoted to. But I do know God. I've read the Bible. I'm reading the Bible again. You know, it's not like I'm denying the idea, but I can't really devoutly just yet in my circumstances now say that I truly believe. I just can't. There's so much that's happened. We, you know, the whole ideas with slavery, the idea of assimilation, a lot of religion is used to do that. Not to say that there isn't value to it, because religion gives you moral and principle. It's
Yeah.
able to build you with a community that share those same things. You know, church is an amazing thing for me personally. I enjoy community fellowship. I love
Mhm.
participating with a community that's working to build with each other to build more. So I don't care if it comes to volunteering. I don't care if it comes to just being a part of the service and just playing a small part. I would be willing to do that and have no problem with it, though we might not share the same beliefs. Just because I enjoy seeing that y'all are coming together. You know, I just want to contribute to that. I don't want to detract from that. I don't want to give my opinion and start trying to deter people away. If this is how you feel, that's how you are, that's how you are. I'd rather take you as that. I know a lot of people on the other end are not as accepting of me, and at least my ideology with that. I can go into many arguments about why this, and that. And then somebody's going to change around even my interpretation of what my beliefs are to work for them. And that's fine because that helps you at the end of the day. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help me at all. It doesn't change how I go about life. You know, when I go on through stressful times and stuff, it's not going to be like I'm going to resort to prayer as much as like I have to really work on just me and getting my mental space in a better situation before I start really interacting with things, because I project my anger. I try my best to control that as much as I can, but I know I fold, but I know I'm working towards it. You know what I mean? I try to be as self-aware as I am. You know what I mean? And some people, you know, might be more willing to pick out my flaws for me before they're even willing to pick out their own. You
Mhm.
know, and I can respect that if you're actually trying to help me. But if you're actually just trying to basically distract from you working on yourself, I can't listen to you. If you're
Yeah.
not working on yourself, there's only so much I can listen to. You know what I mean? Like, because then
It's
it's
like
just you're nitpicking me, and I don't like nitpicking. You know, and I can only take so much of that to some degree before I just, you know, I'm just listening to you, and I'm not gonna do it. You
yeah.
know?
Man, that's so crazy, bro. Because nitpicking is so real. I'm not gonna lie. I remember back to a time where like I would kind of do that with other people. I would kind of nitpick, and like maybe just because like the expectations or standards I have for myself. However, I wasn't really being realistic. Even like with my own standards with myself and like expectations I have for myself. Like yeah, I have them, and like I definitely tried to work to like be better, but like realistically, I just wasn't meeting those expectations and standards for my own self. Like I would have them from other people, and looking back, like it wasn't for one, it wasn't fair, but two, like I realized I felt like a lot of that nitpicking was projecting just maybe what I needed to do and like transforming it into something, saying like, hey, this is something that you need to do because I'm struggling to work on myself. And I see that maybe you're not either putting effort into it or there's something that you haven't recognized that you should be doing the same too, right? But now it's just like, you know, it's not fair. And it's, for one, it's kind of like just unnecessarily hurtful to the other person too, because now it's just you're like talking down on them, doing whatever to like make them feel a certain type of way, just so what you can maybe feel better about your own situation, or it's just like you're telling them to do X, Y, Z, but like what are you doing for yourself? Like you sound like such a hypocrite, especially like they're not going to listen to you, and if you're not leading by example, showing like what the factor, the benefits of actually working on yourself are and like doing it out of good intention, like why would I even take the time out of my day to like listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth, right? It's only going to piss you off.
No,
Ultimately it's just
no,
going to
for
be
sure. No, for sure. But then that's what like that's where it's just like there's only so much you can judge with somebody. But like it isn't wrong to give people advice that you know that you should be following yourself. I just feel like sometimes you need to really throw out that disclaimer. I'm saying this because I know it's something I need to work on in my life. It might help you. It might. It might not. But I'm not trying to force on what I feel like you need to be doing or what you should be doing. I don't know your full situation. I don't know your full experience other than what you can tell me. And you can
Mm-hmm.
only tell somebody so much of an experience. And unless you've lived it to some degree, you'll never truly understand. You know what I mean? You won't understand. But you can feel it. You can kind of see it, but you won't understand unless you're living in their shoes. And that again, doesn't mean not to help, doesn't mean don't give advice. It's just more so, again, advice is subjective, and everybody has their own boundaries, and that could be crossing a boundary in many ways because, again, like if they're not thinking about it, they're not trying to work about it, you can't force nobody in a position they're not ready for. People are going to come around to doing whatever they want to do whenever they're ready for it. And that's the truth of it. You can't force somebody to be ready before they are. But you can direct somebody to let them know like you could be such a different caliber of a person. You could be okay. Yeah. I was just saying it just changes the caliber of a person you are. Like you could be in a whole different bag if you kind of just rearrange how you might be interacting in life or how you might be approaching your thoughts or something of some sort. Even the idea with approaching therapy. I know counseling therapy, I need it. I know I need it. I don't need nobody really telling me I need it. I don't care. I know I need it. I know I need to go. But guess what? I've had experience in my lifetime that have made me uncomfortable with counseling because they were, what I'm saying, them therapists were getting paid. They could care less about correcting your issues. If anything, me going to them was more of like a socio-political thing than it was like actually trying to help where my mental space was when I was young. So like now as I'm an adult, I'm trying to reprogram and rethink and actually consider the idea of actually speaking to somebody else that is dedicated for that role and not trying to trauma dump on my friends or those around. Man, let's just start from there. Sorry about that. We had technical difficulties, so now we didn't forgot what the hell we was talking about. It was taking like 10 minutes. It was just kind of wild, but it's still the point being, whatever we were saying, people just gotta be more considerate, bro, and boundaries are just important. It's just so important to build the boundaries, and there's so many expectations we have of each other. There's not a lot of guidance out here for young women. There's not a lot of guidance for young men. We got older women that'll be jealous of young women. You got older men that'll be jealous of young men. It's a lot. It's all nutty. It's all crazy. It's all just way too much. Like it's way too much considering all of us should be in like a different body for emotional maturity. You know what I mean? Or a different like mindset. I mean, more so, not body. Different mindset when it comes to emotional maturity. Especially the older you're getting, you should be a little bit more aware, a little bit more empathetic to some of the situations. And if you see somebody that has a better situation than you did, be happy for that. You shouldn't just be like, you shouldn't feel sorry because someone's going through something worse than you. You should be happy that no one has to deal with the anguish and the suffering that you might be going through, because sharing that misery with somebody is more sorry than, what I'm saying, wishing that on somebody else, or basically trying to, elevate your situation because, oh, nobody else could be in your shoes. Like maybe nobody wants to be in your shoes. Maybe nobody should. Maybe you shouldn't even be in your shoes. But those are the cards you were given. Those are the cards you were given. Sometimes we all start differently in the race, but we all still gotta finish. We're all still gonna finish. We're all gonna still end it all at some point. You know what I'm saying? Not suicide by any means, but of course, anybody out there, make sure you hit that. What's the number? 988. But like it all comes to an end, and it all comes to an end in your own time. You
Yeah.
can't call it. I wouldn't, rush it to be sooner. Even if you don't really have all the motivation to enjoy the now, there's so much more that you can find that you can enjoy and appreciate. Some people have animals. I wouldn't say jump to an animal unless you're ready to take care of something that's gonna be like a child. Because them animals ain't easy to take care of. They ain't the sweetest thing to have.
I
They
learned my
cool,
lesson, man. I learned my lesson, brother.
bro. They got health issues like your kids could have. There's so many other costs to it that you just aren't gonna think about up front. But animals are great companions. You know what I mean? If you want a companion, you don't gotta rush to a child. You want a child, there's kids that need foster homes. You could be a foster family if you wanted to. I don't know. Just don't try to like find your happiness in other people. Just try to find it in yourself and just grow to be yourself, because that's all we got. You only got you a lot of the time in the world, and all you can do is just build a community that you support and that supports you, or just being a part of a community that you support and supports you. That's really just it. Anything else is just gonna come right back down to what you're gonna do naturally, bro. Preserve yourself, because when it comes down to wanting to live, most times people want that. Most times people are gonna fight for to live, even if they're dealing with some type of depression and life is really hard. It's a lot, considering that you still know what you can deal with in life at the end of the day. Even though there's so many things you just gotta learn to navigate, there's a lot of things you can still more than less of the time deal with than having to go through something just so crazy as like experiencing what no one else really knows what happens after you experience it. I mean, nobody can connect with you. Nobody can really, there's not too much. There's not too much that we can do after life has ended in its purpose. But at least we're not immortal. Being immortal, there'd be no purpose. If we lived all the time for forever and whatever amount of time with no real worry of what can happen to us, even if we have to go through something that's very brutal, that you'll still live through it, it just kind of means that what can stop you, what's giving you limitations to really enjoy the conditions that you're given. You know, other than you only enjoy it if you allow your mind to enjoy it. At that point,
Yeah, and you're really spitting.
I guess, man. I try to give something to feed the soul, man, if it's possible. But that's why we try to do it here at Chronic Minds every day. You know what I'm saying? Trying to give that mental THC. That's where you always can find the saddest stuff. And
Definitely got me thinking on a high level right now, man. I tell you that.
I appreciate that.
That's definitely like it. We got to be happy for ourselves, and once we reach that point, once we find happiness within ourselves, I feel like we can get to a point to where we can start rubbing that off on other people, you know,
Hmm.
and we can really foster some great relationships. That's the core foundation of a lot of people, but I think getting there is the biggest step. For people to truly be happy, I think there's just a lot going on in life and not enough resources. Um, there's enough resources, but not like enough social access to get them.
Hey, I mean, sometimes we gotta start somewhere, and you gotta take it slow. We can always rush it however we can, but take it at the pace that you're allowed to anytime, and don't rush it. Don't rush yourself. I mean, we can come to a better space in time, but I mean, people have to come to we all have to come to the same interest towards the same goal at that point. Nobody can deter from it. And if that were to happen again, we still need to be on that same point. Though we might not agree on everything, there's certain things where we have to just see that there's a goal that we want to get to, and there's only so many ways that we're going to get to that goal. It's only so many ways. You know what I mean? You can only imagine, because there's so many costs and chances and causes and effects to everything we do. And a lot of time you're not going to see impact until it's beyond your reach of control, because that's just how, a single drop in the whole ocean, just how far the waves can go and how they just ripple and triculate, and other ones can form and other ones stop you know. But at the same time, at that very time moment, that inevitable peace, it was meant to be where it is. So at some point, some degree, where no matter what your situation, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're lacking, no matter what you want or what you need, you're where you need to be at. You're in the place that you're supposed to be. And a lot of times you can't rush greatness, you can't rush success. If someone else has theirs, you should celebrate that. You know what I mean? It shouldn't come down to like all these other things that they had in favor unless they're trying to make the argument of how you should be doing better and not celebrating your wins. You know,
Yeah.
because that's the only other way you can do it is that the people that are winning around you are still appreciating what you might have going on as long as you're contributing to yourself. Now, I'm not going to say give yourself a pat on the back when you should be doing something that you should have been doing, but I'm definitely not going to say tear you down about how you should have been doing it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I can at least still appreciate that you're starting somewhere and that you're working towards it. And that's it. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody's perfect. I ain't perfect. My man's here ain't perfect. You know, we didn't fail back and fail through here and there. Even what we speaking now is something that's supposed to contribute to our own lives too, because we're still living it. We still gotta go wake up each day and go get it and go get more and try to build more because if we don't, we're stagnant, we're falling behind, and there's somebody else that's going for it. You know, and not to say like, hey, you know, that's the only reason because we're always in competition. No, we in competition with ourselves. I'm trying to be 10 years from now when I'm about 34, 35, I'm trying to be in a better position. And that's always my goal. So the only way I'm gonna get there is if I'm competing with myself now to want more and to build myself up to be better. You know what I mean? That's it. That's the only way. Other than that, you know, unless I'm comfortable where I'm at in life and comfortable with whatever I have, there's no reason why I shouldn't want more, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, I will be comfortable with what I have and what I got, and I'm not gonna go for more. I'm gonna just be there, and from there, I'll just build up my family or my team around me to, you know, keep going for theirs or keep pursuing whatever the case is. So, yeah. Any more thoughts for him? Key, put him on a little something this, a little that.
Man, you know, I'll say some final words of wisdom. I'll say some final words of wisdom. You know, be true to yourself. Be true to yourself to the point to where you know what you want deep down inside, and work toward being true to yourself. I think being true to yourself is the best thing you can do for yourself and everybody around you. If you're true to yourself, you can express what you need to express without feeling any remorse for yourself. You'll be able to be authentic, and have little to really worry about. Now, will other people see you differently? Sometimes that may be the case, but the truth is, people are going to perceive us how they want to perceive us, anyways. And we have little control over that. Now, we can try to influence what they believe by putting on a show for them, but ultimately, like, we're not here to make our, the people around us happy and live a miserable life, but we're here to live a happy life for ourselves. And with that, the people around us can do the same. We want to foster an environment that allows everybody to do the same, right? I'll just say that. I'll leave it at that.
You know?
You know, hopefully people can really think about that because, with time, going forward, we're at this age where we are making some of these pivotal decisions in our lives, and it's important to realize who we are as people actually moving forward, because it's easy to move directionless, and now you're 30, 40 years down the line, you're in a position you never expected yourself to be in, or maybe you never wanted to be in because you kind of just went with the flow and you didn't really reconcile with who you are and what you want out of life, right? It's important to do that. I feel like we should all do that, and maybe we can, with that, we'll find some direction and purpose, and we can serve ourselves and serve others around us while fulfilling our purpose. You know, I think that's just
Yeah.
something that makes us whole, and that's going to ground us whenever times get hard, whenever, you know, things outside of our control affect us. You know, that's what we have to keep us grounded. You know, that sense of, okay, this is why I'm doing this. This is who I'm doing it for. It should be yourself, but you know, if you're doing it for yourself so you can, you know, if your goal is to help others, you know, let that be who you are, right? And like be honest with yourself of realizing who you are and what you want. So
And have some words from wisdom from the key, the man, the one and only. You know what I'm saying, Mr. Rose. So, nah, man. I mean, that's how we wrap up. Again, I appreciate everybody coming out, and you know what I'm saying. Tune in with us next week, next time. You know, peace.
yes, sir.